Good morning, everyone.
Okay,
you ready?
you may now begin.
Good morning, everyone. This is HOC's Development and Finance Committee meeting of February 18. And with me are my colleagues, Rick Nelson and Jeffrey Merkowitz. We are the committee of three and a number of our staff. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the Development and Finance Committee meeting minutes of January 21. May I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Rick? You're muted.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And next, the minutes, approval of the minutes of our closed session on January 21. May I have a motion on those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. The minutes of the closed session are also approved. Our first item on the agenda this morning, and for any who have checked in, I will just state that the closed session that was scheduled this morning has been canceled. So we just have two items on our agenda. The first is the Hillendale Gateway design update, preliminary plan approval, selection of a building company as general contractor, and approval to select a construction management firm. Catherine, are you handling this or is someone else?
I am. Thanks, Commissioner. Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Catherine Hollister. I'm a Senior Financial Analyst in the Real Estate Division. Today, I'll be presenting a development and design update on Hillendale Gateway, and we'll be seeking the committee's support in joining staff's recommendation regarding a preliminary development plan, the selection of a general contractor, and the selection of a construction manager for Hillendale Gateway. On page 14 of your brief book is the executive summary. Hillendale Gateway will be a new mixed-use, mixed-income, multi-generational community located on the site of Holly Hall Apartments. It will comprise two residential buildings, one 155-unit net zero energy, age-restricted senior building, which we refer to as the AR building. The other, a 308-unit passive house, non-age restricted multifamily building, which we refer to as the NAR building. In addition to the residential buildings, the site will have a drive-through Starbucks, parking garage, retail restaurant spaces, and a public green space. HOC is developing Hillendale Gateway as part of a joint venture with the Duffy Companies. Page 15 of your brief book are the development highlights. There are many, so I'll touch on these points briefly. First, affordability. This will be a contemporary mixed income community with a minimum of 30% affordability. Economic development. This development will be the first major multifamily investment in the East County in decades and is intended to be a catalyst for achieving broader transformations in Hillendale. Sustainability. The development will be built to passive house standards, with the AR building achieving zero net energy, meaning that it produces as much energy as it uses. This is an extraordinary achievement in the multifamily sector in the region. Resiliency. Hillendale Gateway will also provide a resiliency center for residents and the surrounding neighborhood through periods of grid outages. This center will provide emergency heating and cooling, refrigeration of temperature-sensitive medications, and plug power for charging critical devices and equipment. Public open space. There's a significant amount of outdoor public space at Hillendale Gateway, and it's programmed in a way that will attract and engage both residents and the broader community to the site. And then finally, transportation. The development of Hillendale Gateway will also include more than $1 million in transportation improvements along Powder Mill Road, including a new bus transit center and pedestrian-friendly drop-off pickup area. Page 16 of your brief book is an aerial view of the site. Just to orient you, the age-restricted building is on the east side of the site. The non-age restricted building is on the west. The parking garage is on the south. We have 2 retail pads in the center of the site with a flexible green space and outdoor seating in between those 2 retail pads. The drive-through Starbucks is in the northeast corner. That's number 5. The transportation center is number 6 on the very north edge of the site. 7, 8, and 9 are public open spaces. Number 7 is a big central green. They'll have a lawn and an amphitheater. Number 8 is a urban plaza with seating and tables. And number 9 is a festival street that can be closed down and would be really a perfect space for farmers markets or other community festivals. Page 17 shows exterior renderings of the site. Pages 18 and 19 show some of the amenity spaces in the NAR and the AR building. These renderings show the interior architecture of the spaces and the selected finishes. So the wall coverings, the flooring, the lighting, and the colors. The furniture has not yet been selected, so the furniture selections you see in these renderings are just for illustrative purposes only. Pages 20 and 21 highlight the accessibility features, both inside and outside. Accessibility has been a prominent factor throughout the design process. I do want to note that there is one accessibility feature that I forgot to include on page 21, and that is the inclusion of roll-in showers in both the AR and NAR building beyond the UFAS units.
Thank you for that.
Yep. Page 22 provides background on Prescient, which is a prefabricated lightweight steel structural system that will be used at Hillendale. The key takeaway is that the per unit cost of wood versus Prescient are relatively the same. However, Prescient allows for more density, resulting in more units, both affordable and market rate on the site. The development team conducted an in-depth analysis of the construction costs of Prescient and provided a report on these findings in the March 2021 Commission Brief Book. Page 23 illustrates who we think our residents will be at Hillendale Gateway. On the AR side, Hillendale will provide an attractive option for seniors who live in the area that are looking for an easier day-to-day or an engaging community to connect with. For the NAR building, we believe residents will come from near and far and will attract households looking for more room to grow or for more convenient access to major employers. Hillendale Gateway really is in the center of a vital life sciences and health hub with the FDA a 1.5 miles down the street and 2 major hospitals within 5 miles. Page 24 provides market comps and includes both HOC and non-HOC developments. Pages 25 through 27 present the preliminary development plan. This is really the framework that staff and the development team will use for its financing applications. Again, this is not the final development plan or finance plan. Staff will continue to analyze and evaluate financing products and strategies, as well as cost savings and efficiencies as it works toward a final development and finance plan, which staff anticipates bringing to the Commission for approval in July. The chart on the bottom right-hand corner of page 25. So if you go back to page 25, yep. So the chart on the bottom right-hand corner shows the proposed site-wide affordability mix. Staff proposes that 24% of the units are affordable to households earning 50% AMI and below, that 6% of the units are affordable to households earning 70% AMI and below, and 9% of units are affordable to households earning 80% AMI and below. This affordability mix meets the requirements of the Housing Production Fund, which will be a construction financing source for the transaction. This affordability.
Can I ask a question, Catherine?
Yep.
Yeah.
If you're using HPF for the non-age restricted housing, and you're not using HPF for the age restricted housing, how does it meet the HPF requirements?
Right, so it's because the site as a whole meets the HPF requirements, and that the NAR does help meet that 30% HPF requirement across the site. So it is able to be used for the NAR building because it's part of a larger site that meets that 30% HPF requirement.
And that's permitted in the HPF.
Yes, correct.
And
And
not very many subsidized units.
I mean, I am absolutely, and I don't understand how we got there. I'm absolutely opposed to only 8% affordable in the NAR building.
Yeah, I was going to ask also about like how this mix was come up with, how we came up with this mix, and
Sure. I can give some background. So as part of the White Oak Science Gateway Master Plan, there was a requirement that if the Holly Hall site was developed, that the development must include 96 affordable units for seniors. So at a very minimum, there must be 96 affordable senior units as part of a redevelopment. Beyond that, as part of our site plan approval, there is a required site-wide affordability of 25%. So this goes above and beyond both what the White Oak Science Gateway Master Plan envisioned and what our site plan requires. And one of the reasons why we do have so much affordability in the senior building is really to maximize the LIHTC program. With the way that the affordability is at the senior building, we would be able to get about 9.5 million in additional LIHTC equity versus if we had just done the site plan required minimum of 96 affordable units in that building.
And to add a couple other points, because of federal fair housing law, you cannot partially age restrict buildings. So that's sort of the other big piece of context here. So the 96 being required to do the 96 senior units means they can't be done as part of a single project building that has non-age restricted in it. So this is very similar to the way the Upton worked as well. So that was another thing that we had to work with. And lastly, in conversations with the community, the East County hasn't seen a new market rate unit in decades. So, some of the feedback we got from the community is that they very much welcome finally some serious investment in the East County, but that they did have concerns about the East County continuing to be a repository for affordable housing. They wanted to see mixed income and a diversity of unit types. So, this is something that the commission has seen before, and we are working off prior approvals related to this mix.
Except that, and in terms of prior approvals, the prior approvals and the resolution talks about 30%, does not talk about the individual breakdown between the two buildings. The commission has made, I think, clear over the last 4 or 5 years that our goal is to have 30% affordable in every building we put up. And I understand all this concern about the master plan and all that stuff, but the first concern that you need to address is what the commission has expressed. And the commission has expressed a desire for a minimum of 30, and that's a minimum, it's not a maximum. And it does not seem that has been taken into account. And I don't, and if we had more affordable in the non-age restricted building, it ain't gonna kill the East County to have a few more affordable units. So, I mean, that argument doesn't hold much water. You've got a total of 308 units in that building. And I think having some more affordable is not harmful. Okay,
All right.
go ahead.
And I just wanted to add that two things. One, the commission has in fact approved, when as the HPF came about. This project's been around for a long time. HPF came about afterward. Conversations around 30% affordable came around afterward. We certainly understand and are operating with that as our go forward, but the the general allocation of the affordable units at this site have been before the commission. The commission has made approvals, understanding that 96 of these units have to be in the senior building at a minimum, and so there's no way to apply our standard 30% per building when we already have 55-60% in one building.
Just because you have more units, more affordable units in the age restricted doesn't preclude having more units in the non-age restricted. I don't understand.
It doesn't.
that
No, it doesn't.
argument.
It doesn't preclude it. We're just saying that this is discussions we've had. These are things that have been, this is an allocation that we've presented.
I would like to take issue with that, because you seem to be suggesting that the commission has bought off on this. I don't think that's the case. If you will recall the history of Hillendale, you first came with 25% or less affordable. And it was because of the discussion with the commission that we got to 30%.
Correct.
And in that discussion, it was clear that we wanted 30% minimum across the development. I don't recall ever having discussed 8% in the non-affordable building. The resolutions that we approved back in 2019 refer specifically to 30% and underline. There is a chart that has the 8%, but I do not recall that having been specifically discussed. I remember the discussion centering on 30%, and I think it was the understanding of the commission, and if not the commission, sure with mine, that we were looking at 30% across. I don't recall 8% in an AR building. And
Commissioner, I also think the only clarification was that we were, because the preponderance of affordable units had to be met in the senior building because of the master plan. The balance of the affordability had to be met in the multifamily building, and so the 30% across the site, the balance was placed in the multifamily building. So we were constrained somewhat by the number of units that we had to replace in the AR building, and therefore the rest of it in the NAR building.
But Kayleen, that seems to assume that we are just that 30% is the maximum, and I'm absolutely taking issue with that. There's nothing wrong with having 100% in the affordable, in the age restricted building, and 30 or something close to 30 in the non-age restricted building. So we have two buildings with more than 30%. What's wrong with that?
On top of that, when we look at the way the county is planning out the eastern part of the county, and that being a tech center, we're not helping make that attractive at all for the janitors, the clerical staff, the employees of the people that are intended to move to this revitalized part of the county. And I think it's irresponsible to say that with all of the anticipated employment that's going to be developing there, for us to do nothing to strengthen the breadth and variety of income levels that are to be served is just not responsible of of us. And the fact that the community pushed back some, when haven't they pushed back? And particularly, Holly Hall was one of the most vigorous pushbacks in the history of HOC and its financing. And I think we've an obligation to provide housing for the workforce that the county has set a priority for bringing to that area. Yes, they want high income people, but the mid-level people, the workforce needs to be accommodated. And when you look at the county's commitment to equity, this just falls so short that it's embarrassing.
So, commissioners, what we as staff can do, if it doesn't significantly impair the development, is to go back and look at what other levels of affordability we can introduce and bring it back for discussion. At this point, I mean, I think that's what we can offer up.
Yeah, I think that would be good. And, for us to be able to consider some different options there.
Mm-hmm. So we can do that. Catherine and Zach and Marcus, you can tell me, offline what impacts this has on the planning process, but that's probably the right thing to do at this point.
Yeah, I mean, there's absolutely no obstacle other than money. That's it.
Okay.
There's no obstacle to, doesn't affect the planning process at all.
Right. Then we'll do that. And there may be other.
And just to be clear, I think what you're hearing is there's not an objection to the 100% affordability in the AR building. It's the concern is about the NAR.
And that's good. That is helpful because, as Catherine did sort of to sort of capitalize that, show the impact. So that really is helpful. All we're trying to do is, this is a really, really big project, and it's, and so this is a pretty massive investment. And so we just want to make clear that the only issue that stands between this project and more affordability is simply the funding to do it. That's all. So it will not upset anything else in the process. We are happy to do it. But we just want to be clear. And, we also want to be clear, since this is being broadcast, that, we're really proud of what is, what potentially the commission is doing here. This is a very serious new investment in the East County. So yeah, we'll run those calculations, come back with some sensitivity analysis, and certainly in the meantime, see if we can identify some additional sources that could support that.
So we'll bring this back.
I want to be clear, though, at least from my point of view, that this income averaging, if this is what is the outfall of it, it's not an acceptable avenue for me. And it's not acceptable that we minimize the number of affordable units in any building. Our goal is to meet the breadth of the spectrum, short of luxury housing. And we have to look at the people who live in the community and the people who are being planned for into the community. And we have to do our share of accommodating those people. So if I would react the same way if in the future you bring something back to us that looks like this, because it just is not my interpretation of our mission as an agency. And I have thought that in this committee, at least, we've been quite clear about that over the years, certainly since I've been on the commission and Rick has. And so I hope we don't repeat this kind of a conversation.
Yeah, I mean, again, it is specific to this particular development. If we did not have the requirement in the master plan and this were 463 units of multifamily, it'd be 30% across the board. So we are very clear on where you all want to be.
30% or more across the board.
Right, of course, as a minimum, like again, yes, as amended.
You keep going back to the master plan being the impediment, but the master plan is not the impediment. The fact is that we have discovered, and I know that staff has presented 100% or almost 100% affordable buildings for age restricted as the most efficient way to fund those buildings. And I personally have accepted that, though I hate 100% affordable buildings. I accept the fact that it's a different process with senior buildings. But I mean, I just can't accept this argument that the master plan is driving us to 8% in the non-age restricted building. The fact is the commission has spoken, and I think very clearly, that we want mixed income in our properties, and this is not representing that. The other question, and Jackie raised it, though it's in this case it's related to the age restricted building. You say in the narrative that it allows for income averaging. We have, I think if I'm not mistaken, Fenton was used income averaging. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Anything else?
Willow Manors.
Which one?
Pardon me?
Willow Manor properties.
And Elizabeth,
And
the house as well.
can we find out how that has resulted in terms of what the spread of incomes is? I mean, we've been.
I think a discussion on income averaging is definitely worthwhile. I will point out, one of the benefits is that it does allow for deeper affordability.
That's correct.
But Jeffrey,
which I feel strongly is also very important. So
I hear that.
Yeah.
And all I'm saying is that we were presented with that argument and have embraced the income averaging. I'm just asking for us, having tenanted those properties, what is the result in those properties, since we now have up to 80 and we can do income averaging? How have we in fact deepened affordability? And does the record reflect that we've got folks in there who are less than 60, 70, or 80%? That's all I'm asking. I'm not quarreling with the income averaging.
Yeah, Fenton Silver Spring would be a really good data point on that. That building's fully leased, and so that's definitely data we can deliver.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The other thing, and as you go back to look at increasing affordability in the NAR building, I think we've got to revisit this whole issue of when and how HOC uses project-based vouchers. Even with the 70%, I mean, 70% ain't gonna reach people who are poor in the county. The folks who are sitting down at 30, 40, and 50 can't afford 70% rents. So we need to think of other ways to be able to accommodate folks who have are lower on the economic ladder than 70 or 80%. And I think that, at least in my mind, one of the ways of doing that is through project-based vouchers.
And I know that the council in previous conversations for years has been concerned about the 30% income bracket. And we've asked about that. And I would like to see that we always are providing some units in the very low income. So the percentages need split up, I think, to add another category so that we're clear that we're meeting that goal of public need that we don't meet when we're a 50% target. So I would hope
Jackie, just to clarify your point, I believe 50% is considered very low income. 30% is considered extremely low income. So I think.
Okay, thank you for that. The extremely low, the council has frequently spoken about, and the challenge of that. And I think we need to fully understand the challenge of that and be sure that the council also understands the terrific challenge that meeting that bracket is, as we are looking and negotiating with the county and working toward additional funds to assist the county in meeting its area-wide housing goal. And that spectrum can't be left to, if there's anything left over, we'll address that issue. I think we have to focus in more sharply and make a conscious decision on that group of people. Alternately, they become homeless. And if they're homeless, their cost to everybody is significantly greater. So I hope that maybe we can expand our target or shrink some of the others a little bit to be sure that we are also addressing the 30% and below. Because
hi, can you hear me? This is Darcel, the Chief of Compliance. I actually have the unit mix for Fenton. I can give you the numbers now. We have 1 bedrooms. We have 22 at 30%, 20 at 60%, 31 at 80%, and then our 2 bedrooms we have 22 at 30%, and 60 at 60%, 20 and 80% 9. That was the unit mix at the start.
Could you show that in a revised packet or when this information comes back to us so that we can see and the public can see that we genuinely are mission-based and focused on the entire population that is being served by HOC?
We'll include it. And excuse me, Catherine, I think when we run the sensitivity analysis to include more affordable units, we should also look at deeper affordability and the resulting additional cost to deliver those units, because I think it's a good point. And as we mentioned before, the difference between delivering more affordability and deeper affordability is, who will pay for it, and that could be a good negotiating point with the county if we're providing much more in terms of affordability, breadth and depth. We can then say we're meeting HOC's mission, we're meeting the county's goals of affordable housing, and that's how we're able to attract hopefully more funding from the county to deliver on those initiatives. So we should run the sensitivity for those 2 points.
Yep, will do.
And yes, Commissioner Simon, we can include that summary from Darcel in our discussion of affordability mix and income averaging.
Thank you.
Is the difference in what's reflected here is that those units are not necessarily restricted to those incomes? Even
these would all be restricted.
But the number of 30% units that Darcel mentioned, or is that?
Those are restricted as well. Yeah, different deal. Yeah, sorry.
Different deal. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, we're skipping rental, but Fenton Silver Spring is what was 900 there as a working title. In
okay, I just misheard. Thank
And
you.
that was the first averaging deal we did. That's correct, right? That was the first one
Yes,
we applied
yes,
income
correct.
averaging to.
Correct. And the Upton is another good place to look, as well as the H3. A bunch of these buildings are doing sub 50 units, 30 and 40% units as well. We do that on the renovation deals as well. It's as important, but it's also often just matching the population there. So that's a little bit more guided, but we're certainly using, I want to echo what Commissioner Merkowitz said, that, that is the benefit of the income averaging is definitely the ability to stop just serving 60% to try to get to some of those other income tranches, appreciating, of course, the other side of that argument. So.
Well, I think we exhausted that aspect, and we've certainly sidetracked you, Catherine, from your presentation. And would you like to pick up where you left off?
Sure. Yes. So staying on this slide and just going down to the sources for construction and permanent financing. So staff proposes utilizing private construction loans for the construction of the AR and NAR buildings, and FHA risk share permanent loan at conversion. The development team also will be pursuing a number of rebates, grants, and loans related to the building's high performance, energy efficiency, and resiliency. We do think there is significant funding out there that can be realized and included as a permanent source. Page 26 shows the sources and uses for the AR building during construction.
May I interrupt before you go to this next slide and go back to the point on the previous slide, 14, if you could bring that up one more time.
Yeah, page 25. It's just that.
Oh,
yep.
Okay. I think the point about utilizing private construction is also a significant point that we need to be sure that the council understands, because it's money, it's hard money. And again, somebody has to pay for it. And so I think that is another issue that should be clear. And I think using private construction clearly leads to more units. And that, I just wanted to highlight that particular point.
Yeah, just on that point, what we mean is we're not issuing bonds for the construction of these properties. With that does carry a significant cost for Davis-Bacon, so it does make the deal harder to finance. So this is a structure we use in the past, and so it's not a atypical construction financing strategy.
I understand. I just think it's important that people need to appreciate the costs of the Davis-Bacon wages in their evaluation of what we were able to achieve.
Yep.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. So page 27 shows the sources and uses for, page 26. If you go back one page, that's the sources and uses for the AR building. During construction, sources include a private construction loan, LIHTC equity, county HIF, and HOC equity. And then upon stabilization conversion, the construction loan will be taken out by a permanent FHA risk share loan, energy efficiency funding and rebates, and deferred developer fee. On page,
do we have a tentative agreement from the county on 10 million from the HIF?
Yes, that is the amount that we've been in discussions with the county.
Okay.
Page 27 are the sources and uses for the NAR building. During construction, sources include a private construction loan, HPF, HOC's PNC real estate line of credit and HOC equity. Upon stabilization and conversion, the construction loan, HPF, and RELOC will be taken out by a permanent FHA risk share loan and mezzanine debt. In terms of this sensitivity analysis, staff did run an initial analysis on what the impact would be if the affordability at the NAR building was increased from 8% to 15%. And the result of that is a reduction in permanent debt proceeds of approximately $4.2 million. So there would be a corresponding need for additional permanent financing sources.
You can cut me off next time, Catherine.
No, it's okay.
On the sources of funds for the NAR building, you've got county development loan, 35 million.
That's the HPF.
Why don't you put that? I mean, it's not really a county development loan, and I don't want to mislead anybody to thinking that we're asking the county for $35 million.
Yeah, I can absolutely change that. Yep.
Okay, good.
Page 28 through 31 discuss the general contractor RFP and selection recommendation. On page 28, staff issued RFP number 2266 for general contracting services for the construction of Hillendale Gateway. The RFP was posted to HOC's website and was distributed to more than 300 vendors registered in Montgomery County's Central Vendor Registration System, the CVRS. A pre-proposal meeting and conference was held virtually, which 7 firms attended, and proposals were scored by a scoring committee based on the 5 criteria listed on this page. Page 29 provides the background on the 2 bidders that submitted proposals. HOC has worked with both GCs in the past. Page 30 provides the results of the scoring committee. CBG received the highest score of 84 points. CBG really stood out in both the contract qualifications and pricing categories. CBG is the most experienced GC in the country when it comes to pricing construction. Again, HOC has worked with CBG in the past. They built 900 Thayer, now known as Fenton Silver Spring. CBG's price on page 31 provides the price comparison. Bizzuto's bid was approximately 8% higher than CBG's. Pages 32 through 35 discuss the construction manager RFP and selection recommendation. Staff issued RFP 2282 for construction manager services for Hillendale Gateway. The RFP was posted to HOC's website and was distributed to more than 300 vendors registered in the CVRS. A pre-proposal meeting and conference was held virtually, which 9 firms attended, and proposals were scored by a scoring committee based on the 4 criteria listed on this page. Page 33 provides background on the bidders that submitted responsive proposals. HOC has worked with all of these bidders. Page 34 provides the results of the scoring committee. Lambus Rank scored highest in qualifications and MFD participation. It also submitted the lowest bid, which resulted in the firm receiving the maximum points for price. Even if the other 2 bidders received full points under the price category, Lambus Rank would still have received the most points overall. Page 36 presents the development timeline. Staff intends to return to the commission in May to select a LIHTC syndicator, and again in July for approval of a final development and finance plan to set up for a year-end closing. Page 37 presents the prior commission actions, and pages 38 and 39 present the summary recommendations. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
In view of the discussion that we had on the income mix, I personally can't vote to approve the proposed preliminary development and finance plan. Is there a reason why it can't come to the commission in April instead of March?
It's really just to get us started on financing applications, and because there are a lot of elements with the financing plan, we were hoping to present, the full transaction to investors and lenders because we do anticipate that there might be investors who invest in the senior component who might also want to be the lender, either on the senior or the non-age restricted building.
I think to Rick's point, are we able to do that if we don't know what the income mix is going to be yet?
We aren't.
I don't think we can. I don't think we can.
Right.
Yeah, but perhaps if the committee wishes to do that, we can move forward with the procurement pieces of this and bring back the other parts. Or
Yeah, I think. Well, I'll speak for myself. That seems reasonable.
Yeah,
I would agree that we need to, and I don't see any reason we can't take care of the other two issues and support items 2 and 3 in the selection of the general contractor for construction and the third-party construction manager.
Well, but the request is to negotiate a contract. It's not to execute a contract. Is that
Right.
correct?
Correct.
right,
Okay.
right.
I mean, just to be clear, I have no problem with negotiating, but until we are settled on all this other stuff, you can't really execute a contract.
Right, because we'll have to come back for approval to execute the GC
Okay.
contracts, and I think also the CM contract as well. Yeah, we're not close to executing the contract, but
Wait a minute. You actually in number 3 say execute a contract.
yeah,
that would be part. Yeah,
certainly not the GC contract. We cannot execute the GC contract for sure.
Well, how can you execute the construction manager contract?
because the GC contract is still the GC bid on a design development set. We're going to set the contract price based on the permit set. So that's going to take time for them to rebid the newest or the latest version of the plans. There are still terms that need to be negotiated. So approval to actually execute a contract would be part of that final development plan that would come back in July. And so we'd have the final contract price. We'll have the terms of the GC contract laid out for the commission to approve execution of the contract.
Well, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the action that we would recommend to the full, what I would recommend to the full commission is that you negotiate both contracts. No execution. I don't know how you can execute a third-party construction manager if we haven't really approved the contract, the development plan.
Catherine, do we need the construction manager contracts to be in place to assist us with preliminary work associated with the GC contract?
Exactly. So the construction manager right now, that they're going to be a critical partner in helping us with those contract negotiations. The construction manager also does, so there's really 3 phases of work. They do pre-construction work, which is helping us with, the GC contract negotiation with and other technical issues with the construction of the project. Then there's a construction period piece where they're really being sort of the owner's rep on construction management issues. And then there's a closeout period. So we would at least want to be able to execute for the pre-construction phase. We can wait on the construction or closeout phase of that contract until final development plan, if that's what the commission wishes.
That would satisfy me, because you're looking at $1 million+ contract, whereas the pre-construction is $140,000.
Okay.
So I have no problem executing the pre-construction aspect of that, but until we've settled on all the other stuff, I don't think we should include that.
So with legal.
Is that going to change our legal costs significantly?
No, I don't think. It would. We would just basically split their proposal into either a pre-con and construction and post-construction. I don't think it will result.
Or you could have some provision to exit the contract after pre-construction. I mean, you can work something out, but I think that the issue I'm raising is that I don't want the commission to be committed to $1.2 million
Right.
when we haven't made decisions on the project.
Right.
So if there's a way to execute it without tying us to the $1.2 million or giving us an exit ramp, then then do it that way.
Okay. All right.
Catherine, is there value to getting number one here for the AR only?
Yes, yeah, that would be.
If there
great.
isn't disagreement about the shape of the AR building, the age restricted building, that would be helpful because I think there's a tax credit app we want to get rolling on. And so it doesn't bind us to any real additional cost, but it would let Catherine move forward with that. And we know certainly that needs some lead time. So I might recommend that.
If you don't think that the changes we would be making to the non-age restricted mix are going to affect the mix for the age restricted, then I would be okay with that.
Catherine, can you think of any reason? I can't. It's the optimal economic, I think. But can you see a reason that a change to the NAR affordability would change our view?
No, I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, does someone?
I do have another question just before we
Okay.
go to a motion. It's less weighty, I think, but I mean, there's a lot of great things about this project, and one of them that I really appreciate is the focus on resilience and sustainability. It does seem like the focus there is mostly on energy, and I was curious whether we had done any analysis on potential other weather-related impacts. We've started to see more flooding in the county. So we don't necessarily usually think about this being a county that has high risk of flooding, but I don't know if there's been any sort of other kind of climate analysis on this project where we might see other potential risks.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know, Zach, if you know. It really has been more focused on power outages and the result or the impact to the power grid from those sort of natural disasters, more so than on the structural component of the buildings themselves or the stormwater management. But I can look into it and get back to you.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of notes. Passive house is actually first and foremost. It's actually kind of a ventilation theory. It's really based around the idea of fresh air ventilation, and the passive house just means it's done without forced air. It's done, it's done through the exchange of energy and heat and coolness when these two tubes basically pass each other. So that's important from a climate change perspective. Catherine referenced it in here, but it's actually become, to your point, Commissioner, a much bigger issue recently with, when the power goes out and, we saw in the Pacific Northwest really high temperatures and people suffering inside their buildings. And then in Texas, we saw people suffering inside buildings with really cool temperatures. That these passive house buildings will hold temperatures for 3-4 days in the face of complete power outage. Also, because of the lower energy consumption, generators can do more for the building because there's just less load, basically. Certainly, there's a significant amount of stormwater infrastructure going into this particular development. And so notwithstanding that, it feels like the earth is figuratively and literally moving around us on flooding, but there is a significant amount of stormwater infrastructure going in on this project as well. And then I think one of the other conversations for the future, for future deals that are sort of like this, is there's sort of another focus on the true carbon footprint of materials in general. So, you know, we're going to be looking into things like mass timber, in the same way that we, you know, had been looking and investigating systems like Prescient. We're looking into mass timber because of the actual carbon footprint of the materials, you know, concrete, steel versus wood, as well. So those are some questions that we're really interested in for the future.
Zach, one other question, because I think the passive house and the understanding of what it achieves and why, really, if we could have in our documentation, not necessarily for our consumption because we have just listened to you, but for the general public, I think it's important that we begin to help put in writing when we're presenting new ideas and new resources and different ways to use resources, that we devote a little more explanation of why it's a benefit, and particularly if it's a benefit that carries a cost. And I was pleased to see that it would provide power in this case for medical equipment and so forth, and part of charging phones and essential services. I'm wondering about, what about electric cars and parking for them, and how that's incorporated, and or is everybody just going to end up with not being able to drive their cars because they can't charge them? And then the whole issue of broadband, as that is becoming more and more of a focus, and the county has put out in their budgets and other things, an expansion of broadband, and how we know that COVID has made so clear how critical access to broadband is. What efforts and attention are we paying to the availability of that access? I can't imagine how we can ever do it to our scattered site voucher program, but on all of the rest of our units, how do we stand up, particularly scattered site? Do we know whether our units all have, whether our multifamily all have broadband accessibility? I think Christina sent us a survey. We were interviewed. I think it's really important for us to have a discussion about this. And it now is another item that we need to call attention to and make people understand how we're incorporating and serving the people hardest hit by the absence of broadband wherever it exists, and what we're going to do about it. But I understand that the capital budget and the operating budget of the county both have some items of broadband in, and I just want to be sure that we're not overlooking those benefits as well. So
Yeah, thank you. Those are all terrific points and definitely front of mind. Catherine, did you have any notes on this?
Yeah, so on the broadband, we are working with the county to get MoCoNet to the senior building. It meets their sort of criteria, so we've been working with the county on that. Electric vehicles, yeah, I totally left that out of the packet, but our parking garage will be electrified. We're going to be providing a number of electric vehicle parking spaces. We truly believe that is the future of where we're going with cars. And so we're putting the infrastructure in today to provide it immediately, but also to provide more of it in the future when there is an uptick on EV cars.
Well, and on the issue of the senior buildings, I think we're going to have to put into our operating budget some mechanism for educating the residents in the use of the technology. It's not just having it accessible, but being able to use it.
Yeah. Yep.
And you've talked about the senior building. What connectivity do we have in the non-age restricted building for broadband?
Yeah, so we're looking at different service providers for that, and how that would be provided to residents. And there might be an opportunity for us to work with the county on that as well. I just know that the senior building it is one that the county definitely expressed interest in, wanting to work with us on. So that's been the focus, but I don't think it precludes us from doing it in the non-age restricted as well.
Okay.
Well, the school children need access to it, so I just don't think there's any way to avoid it, or I think we'd be negligent if we did avoid it. And I think as we've tried to move forward and incorporate and make best use of solar, we need to be very cognizant of contributing to meeting those county goals. So, well, what
I would move that we recommend to the commission to approve the proposed preliminary development and finance plan for the age restricted building in Hillendale Gateway.
is there a
Number
second?
two- No, wait a minute. I'm finished.
Okay,
Number two, the selection of CBG as you have it here, unchanged to negotiate. And in number three, the selection of Lambeth Rank and authorization for the acting executive director to execute a contract with them that binds the HOC to pre-construction costs only. That gives you some leeway to do whatever else you want with the other, okay? Does that cover
is there a
what
second?
we've said?
Yes, it does.
Jeffrey, you okay with that?
I'm okay with that. I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Now, how soon will you be coming back with an alternative plan for the non-age restricted financing attack, particularly on the issue of incomes?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like we have the calculations in terms of what the impact is already. And so it's really going to be more of a discussion about how to fund those.
How you finance it?
Yeah. So, I mean, certainly I don't see any reason we can't come back
In March,
yeah, that's right.
March committee meeting.
Mhm.
If you want to share with us, like, a couple or two or three different options.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like it's about 4.3 million. You can do it in 4.3 million chunks, really. So you can get the 15 with 4.3, and then, two more 4.3s get you to 30. So
So we'll come
that's
back in March.
that's
with-
kind of what we're talking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you would bring us both the alternatives and then the recommendations so that we can understand the pluses and minuses of each of the proposals.
Yeah, and Zach, what you're throwing out is the more.
Correct.
Minutes. We
Correct.
still need to evaluate the deeper public, if we were to go lower, deeper public purpose.
Yes. Yes.
And then
Agreed.
add that cost to it. So,
Agreed. Yep.
but I think this was good discussion on this very important project, and I certainly appreciate the commissioners pushing us to ensure that we have the best outcome here. So thank you for your comments, really.
Okay. Is there any other business to come before the Dev Fin Committee this morning?
Yes, there's a second item that Jennifer
Okay.
will discuss.
Oh,
with-
that's right. Excuse me. Excuse me. This is the staff recommendation for approval of a bond counsel contract. And is Jennifer presenting this or?
Yes, Jennifer Arrington.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you, Jennifer.
No problem. Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, I'm Jennifer Arrington, Acting Director of Mortgage Finance. And we have before you a request seeking the committee's support to approve the selection of bond counsel to serve the commission in accordance with RFP 2288. Bond counsel provides legal advice and issues legal opinion on the issuance of tax-exempt bonds or other securities issued to finance the commission's housing programs. Without an accompanying opinion of a nationally recognized bond counsel, the bonds are not normally marketable. The firm selected to represent HOC for the next contract term is expected to participate on the structuring of bond transactions, prepare, review, and assemble transcript documents on the issued debt, provide interpretive services to HOC on an ongoing basis, and assist with related covenant and tax compliance matters. On page 40, in 2017, both Kutak Rock and Ballard Spar were awarded a contract for 3 years with 2 additional 1-year extensions. That final renewal period expires on April 9th, 2022. Kutak Rock has served as the Commission's bond counsel for all its single-family bond indentures and all its multifamily bond issuances, while Ballard Spar would serve as bond counsel for selected standalone or conduit multifamily transactions. Kutak Rock has been providing bond counsel services to HOC since 1979. And during the last 10 years, HOC has issued more than $1 billion of single family and multifamily housing bonds combined. In addition, Kutak Rock is consistently recognized as one of the leading bond counsel firms nationwide. Ballard Spar's primary area includes its public finance practice, specializing in general housing bond finance. This was its first representation as bond counsel to the commission. However, since its engagement, Ballard Spar has not represented the commission on any private developer transactions. In addition, with the limitation of volume cap in the commission's healthy real estate development pipeline, the commission has been unable to issue bonds for any third-party transactions. Page 41. While the 2017 procurement considered the need for a separate firm that focused primarily on standalone or conduit multifamily transactions, the 2021 procurement did not, due to this limitation of volume cap. On October 27, 2021, RFP 2288 for bond counsel services was published on HOC's website and electronically mailed to 32 firms. These 3 responses were received from Kutak Rock, Ballard Spar, and Tiber Hudson, a full-service minority-owned law firm and DC certified business enterprise. A summary of each of the firms is included as Exhibit 1. Page 42. Each firm was required to present information to ensure it met the minimum qualifications of the RFP as listed, and all firms met the minimum requirements. Each proposal was then rated based upon the evaluation criteria outlined here. Interviews were not held for this procurement due to the small size of the respondents. Therefore, the score for presentation related solely to the clarity, completeness, and responsiveness of the offeror's written proposal, and all respondents were notified of this condition. A full summary of each proposal is included as Exhibit 2, and I apologize for the small font for Exhibit 2, but we wanted you to have all the information. Page 43. A scoring team of 4 members from the commission staff rated the responses, and the commission's financial advisor reviewed each proposal. Based upon an average of all scores, Kutak Rock received the highest score. Therefore, due to its longstanding relationship with the commission and knowledge of both its single-family and multifamily bond programs, its depth of experience in public and housing finance, tax law, securities law, real estate law, the completeness of its proposal, and its proposed fees, staff believes that Kutak Rock is best suited for a new contract term. With respect to fees, the RFP requested that the offeror propose its method for determining its fee, whether it be hourly charges or a per bond fee. Kutak Rock was the only offerer to propose a flat fee for both single-family and multifamily bond issuances and hourly rates for matters unrelated to a bond transaction. Page 44, the summary of fees and reimbursable expenses are listed here. Kutak Rock proposes a 9-member bond team with 6 partners, 2 attorneys, and 1 associate. The same team has represented the commission since 2017, if not longer. Combined, its average hourly rate is $4.26. Kutak Rock further proposes a flat fee of $52,000 for its HOC single-family bond issuances, which is a 0% increase since 2017. For multifamily, the per transaction fee is proposed at $65,000, which represents an 8% increase since the 2017 award. This is considered reasonable. Private developer standalone issuances would be negotiated at the inception of the transaction. Based upon each offeror's proposal, the evaluation criteria, and the existing healthy pipeline of the Commission's real estate development transactions and anticipated financings, staff proposes that Kutak Rock be selected as the Commission's bond counsel for a new contract term of 3 years with 2 additional 1-year extensions in accordance with the Commission's procurement policy. Staff further proposes the contract fee not exceed $600,000 annually, and that any future multifamily conduit engagement be negotiated with Kutak Rock or by bid. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
Further questions?
I just have a clarification question. It doesn't change anything, but I was curious on the scoring for the fees. I noted that, Kutak Rock and Tiber Hudson both received 18%, but it does appear that, their fees are not the same. One, at least maybe I'm missing something, or, the Tiber Hudson one seems to be a little lower. So I was just curious why they received the same score.
I would have to go back to review each of the members' team's score, but I think these are average numbers, and each team member perhaps reviewed them differently. I'm sure Tiber Hudson's was the cheapest, but at the same time, does the cheapest necessarily mean that it's reasonable?
No, and I'm not suggesting that. Oh, I see what you're saying. So that they may have
lowballed,
and so then points were taken off for that. Perhaps.
I can't speak to how anyone else scored, but that certainly was how I scored it.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Is there a motion to accept the staff's recommendation for the selection of Kutak Rock LLP for a new contract term as bond counsel for both single family and multifamily?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. It's unanimous. Thank you. Now, is there anything else to come before us today? No.
There isn't.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the openness and the level of the discussion this morning and staff's response to addressing the commissioner's concerns on the Hillendale property. Thank you very much. We'll look forward to receiving the further recommendations.
Okay.
May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned and we'll
Have a good weekend.
ready for our next meeting.
Have a good weekend. Thank
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good weekend.
Bye-bye.